Welcome to this webinar on silent film celebration. I'm thrilled that you're here so that I can help you learn how to run a silent film recital or event in your own community. Before we begin, I'd like you to picture the following. A young boy sitting at a piano, his hands are poised, he's looking up at a screen. He's not performing in a regular recital hall, but in a packed movie theater. He's watching for the cue where Charlie Chaplin, a convict on the run, pops up out of the sand next to an unsuspecting police officer. When he sees this scene, that is his cue to start performing the slimy viper. Welcome to Silent Film Celebration. Silent Film Celebration didn't begin as a grand event or an aspirational project for me. It began because I had one student who was terrified to perform. This is a picture of some of my students. And in this picture, you will not see my student, Matthew. Matthew would come to the recitals ready to perform, but every single time it was time to perform, he could be found not on the stage, but in the restroom, physically ill. As his teacher, my heart went out to him. I knew that I had to do something to help him get over his fear of performing. I needed a creative solution, and silent films was the solution. I did some research and found the solution in the most unlikely place, which is 100 years ago in the past, where performers would accompany silent films. As I learned about this idea, I thought this is something that I should try out with my own students and see if this would help Matthew. So we took the time where I took out one film. It's called 1 Week by Buster Keaton, and I assigned each of the scenes to my students, gave them music to play, broke out all of the scenes, and Matthew was assigned a 45-second scene to accompany. While I had assigned this piece to him and while he had been practicing, I was also practicing his piece as well, because when his time for his performance came, I didn't want the silent film to actually become that silence. On the day of the recital, I pulled up my screen and projector, set out chairs for the audience, and something miraculous happened. I noticed that Matthew seemed a lot more at ease because the audience was not focusing on him and on the performers, but they were focusing on the excitement and the energy of what was happening on the screen. And so when it was time for Matthew to perform his 45-second piece, he got up, he sat down at the piano, he performed his piece and sat back down. This was the first time Matthew had ever been able to perform in a recital. For me, this was a groundbreaking experience that needed to be shared with others. I figured if this is something that would help my student, this certainly could help other students as well and also do some good in the community. So shortly after that, I reached out to the teachers in Davis County, Utah, and I said, let's put together an annual event. Let's do a silent film music festival. It was an all-day event. It went from 10 a.m. until 8 p.m. We had over 250 students that were performing. We had films that were shown every 45 minutes throughout the day. The purpose of this was to help bring funds to this beautiful art gallery. So we held our event in this art gallery, and all of the proceeds went to help support them and in their music programs. We held it there for a few years until our event got too big. And so now at this point, we hold our Utah Silent Film Celebration in a movie theater. It has turned into a big 2-day event, which is quite a special event for all of us. But it didn't stop there. As I saw that this was a program that would benefit not only the students and the community, I turned this into a nonprofit 501c3 and have been focusing on finding more films and more music that could be shared with students. So one of my first places I went was to the Library of Congress, where I scoured through their films, their music scores, and found some wonderful new pieces and films that could be shared with teachers. I also went to the Silent Film Festival in San Francisco. This is at the Castro Theater, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous theater. And as I was there, I noticed something pretty interesting. My husband and I, who aren't that young, we were actually the youngest people in the audience, which made me realize this how holding events where students are performing it was something that would really resonate with teachers and communities. So what I was looking for were films that the students, young students, would appreciate and enjoy watching and performing alongside. Now this event, the Silent Film Celebration, turned into a much bigger project that I couldn't do on my own. So I recruited friends, and you'll see a lot of Smiths. I recruited a lot of my family members and colleagues to help me put together the silent film celebration, because this is something that needed to be shared with others. I think if you look at the bottom, some of the most important people that were involved in this project were my little granddaughters, who were the silent film critics there at the bottom, and also, of course, Copper, our family four-legged uh, child, who was the popcorn tester. So it became a real family and friend project to put Silent Film Celebration together. At this point now, we hold this at the movie theater, and these are just a few pictures from last year's event. These are some of the students that performed in the theater. And now this is something that I thought would be helpful, because a lot of these students, I'm going to go back a slide. A lot of these students, when I would ask them, have you ever played or watched a silent film before this event? And 95% of them had never seen one before. So we're going to do a little quiz. I'd like to see how silent film savvy are you? So here are some questions. Question number 1, who was considered the stone face actor? Was it A, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, B, Charlie Chaplin, C, Buster Keaton, or D, Harold Lloyd? Or E, you have no idea. The answer is Buster Keaton. He was considered the stone-faced actor. The next question, what instruments were used to accompany silent films? A, piano, B, organ, C, the full orchestra, or D, all of the above? The answer is D, all of the above. And it had to do with what kind of theater it was being performed in. If it was a smaller theater, they might have a theater organ. They might have just had a piano. If it was a larger theater, like the Castro Theater in San Francisco, they had space for a full orchestra. Next question. Why was live music added to silent films? A, to block out the sound of people eating popcorn. B, this is a trick question, silent films should be watched without sound. C, to enhance the scenes and characters. Or D, the United Filmmakers Guild required theaters to hire professional musicians. I like the answer of A, but that's not the answer. The answer is to enhance the scenes and characters. Next question. How many silent films from the 1890s to the 1920s are considered lost or destroyed? A, none are lost. They were all preserved by the Library of Congress because they were deemed national treasures. B, approximately 25% of the films. C, approximately 85% of the films. D, this is a trick question. There is no such thing as a silent film. The answer is approximately 85% of the films were lost or destroyed. And interestingly, this past week, a film was just found in pristine condition, which was quite a find. It will be shown at the San Francisco Silent Film Festival this spring. So I'm excited to see that. I've been talking about silent film celebrations, but I thought it would be helpful to show you what a silent film celebration actually looks like. So I pulled out a small clip of a few of my students who were accompanying the scene, the film Buster Keaton's film, The Goat. You'll notice at the bottom are the two students that are playing. The pianos are side by side. And as you watch this film, pay attention to the types of music that you are hearing. Some of them are very traditional pieces. Some of them are more popular music that was originally just written. The levels are different. The ages of the students that you see coming on and off of the screen, you'll see that there's students of all ages and abilities that are performing. So now that you've seen a small clip on silent film celebration, the next section of this webinar is sharing with you what, where, and why on how you can create an event like this in your own community. The what, there are three key elements. You need students, you need a silent film, and you need music. So I'm going to cover each one of these. A silent film celebration, you are able to have students of all levels and abilities perform in the same recital, in the same film. You see the cute girl in the front who has the braids. She had only been taking piano lessons for a couple of months, and she was able to play and accompany alongside adult students, teenage students, high school graduates. And that's what makes this such a positive thing, is that you can involve all of your students. In my community, there are a lot of events for the most advanced children, the most advanced students. There aren't a lot of events that are specific for young students. So this is something that they look forward to each year, to be able to participate in this. And I think the parents really enjoy this as well. When you're doing this, you are going to break out the scenes so the students are playing on accompanying each of the different scenes. Because you're doing that, you are going to need two pianos. If you're a piano teacher, you can also do this with other instruments as well. And so you see that I have two pianos on the little sticky tab notes on each piano. One says odd, one says even. So that means that the students that are playing the odd scenes are going to play on the piano on the right. Those that are playing the even scenes are going to be playing on the piano on the left. And it just keeps it in track so that they know which piano they're going to be performing on. Because this music is going to be playing one right after another. You don't want pauses in the playing. So you're able to play simultaneously without any pauses or gaps in the music. I am going to share with you another scene, another film, where you can see that the student in the front, my student, is watching the film, making sure that her music is lined up directly with what she is seeing on the screen. While she's doing that, you'll notice that the student in the back is waiting for her time, watching the film as well, so that she knows when it is her time to perform. So here is this little clip. just a short sidebar on this. This is a film called Should Men Walk Home, starring Mabel Normand. I've been showing a lot of films over the past years that have starred Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, but I felt like it was really important to show the female comedians as well because they were very important during this time. Mabel was a producer, she was a director, she played in a lot of these scenes. So this is one of the new films that are with Silent Film Celebration. Okay, going on. Speaking of films, you're going to need to find a film that fits specific parameters. Before I share what those parameters are, I'm going to share a story about why films are so scarce. In the quiz that you took, I shared that 85% of the films were lost or were destroyed. And I'm going to share with you why this happened. Back in the early 1900s, when films were being produced and put out, they would follow like a trail throughout the United States and Canada. They would go from city to city. The films would go from city to city, and they would end up one of the last places. Well, the last place where they would go was in Dawson City, which is in the Yukon in Canada. As all of these films were sent to them, there was no place for them to, they didn't know what to do with them. And so they either threw them away, and a lot of them, what they did was they ended up putting them into an abandoned pool, which you see here. It was so cold up there. What they ended up doing is they buried them in the dirt, and that's where all of these films were for over 100 years. It was during an excavation where they found in Dawson City. There's, in fact, if you go to YouTube, you can watch this documentary called Dawson City Frozen in Time, which is a fabulous document that you should watch, documentary about it, and learn more about these silent films that were discovered. As they as they were uncovered, they found that a lot of these were like capsules in time that were actually not destroyed. They look like they were in a terrible shape, but they, because they were made out of nitrate, a lot of the films were destroyed because of the heat, and because they were in this closed space in the pool, and it was cold, they were actually able to be salvaged. They were able to salvage 533 reels, which is pretty incredible. 106 hours of footage. These were the boxes that they put them in after they uncovered them. They don't look like they were in very good shape, but they were actually in a decent enough shape so that they were able to restore a lot of these films. So a lot of the films that we have today were because of what they found in Dawson City. There are a lot of silent film comedians that are fabulous. These are some of my most favorite: Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, along with Oliver Hardy. So Oliver Hardy and Stan Laurel and Hardy. A lot of these are now in the public domain. Mabel Normand. If you're wanting to do a little bit of research on some of them, Mabel had a very interesting life, so you might want to learn more about her. It was a sad life, but what she ended up giving back to people, it's interesting. She was able to bring a lot of joy into a lot of people's lives through her films. Here are 3 of the silent film comedians that are in the Silent Film Celebration library. So we have Buster Keaton on the left side, Mabel Normand is in the middle, and Charlie Chaplin. So as you are looking for films to choose, these are some things that I highly suggest. I highly suggest that you find films that are comedies, because there's a lot of films out there that are not comedies, a lot of silent films, and you are going to lose your audience if you choose silent films that are not funny and enjoyable for especially young students. Make sure that you're finding appropriate content. When I was at the Library of Congress, I had 53 films pulled so that I could review them. Out of those 53 films, there were only a couple that I deemed appropriate for today's watching, today's viewing. There's just a lot of inappropriate material that is not reflective of what you would want to share with your students or what would be deemed appropriate now. In fact, it wasn't appropriate then either, but it was a different time period. And then you also want to consider the length of the film. I've had a lot of teachers ask me, these films are so short. They're roughly 20 minutes long. But believe me, if you choose a film that is longer than that, you are going to lose your audience. They are not used to watching these silent films. It's without talking. And so to keep their attention span, consider the length of the film. And my suggestion is roughly around 20 minutes long. Regardless of whatever film that you choose, you can purchase some. You can go to lots of different places to find silent films. There's films that are in the public domain. These are all of the films that we have in the Silent Film Celebration collection. There are a few more that are not included here in this picture, including Mabel Normand's Should Men Walk Home, as well as a couple animated films. What you're going to want to do after you choose your film is you're going to want to break out your scenes. In the Silent Film Celebration collection, what I've done for each of the films is I've broken them out. You'll see here that they're all broken out by chapter. So this chapter 1, this is from The Scarecrow, Buster Keaton's The Scarecrow. It begins at 0. The chapter ends at 1 minute 21 seconds, which means that the performance time of the first performer is going to be performing for 1 minute 21 seconds. I've entitled this chapter Farmhands. And then I have the theme here, which is joyful, meaning what kind of music would fit this scene. And the theme that I chose was like joyful music, something that's more uplifting and happy. On the worksheet, you can do this in a spreadsheet or whatever you'd like. In my silent film celebration, I have this directly on the site, on the website, where you can put in what student you've assigned, as well as what piece you've chosen. So Spencer A is going to be playing Miniature March for chapter 1, and he's going to perform that for 1 minute 21 seconds. So you'll go through and you'll do that for each of the chapters. Consider that if you have a 20-minute film, you're probably going to have roughly around 20 different scenes. On my site, you can also export this so that you can share it, turn it into a PDF, and you can share this if you're going to be doing this with other teachers, or if you're going to share this with your the students, or if you're putting this together as like a program for a recital. So it's easy to share and easy to export. The next thing you need to consider is the music selection. When you're choosing the music, consider the following. You need to think about what is the length of the scene that the student is going to accompany, what is the mood or emotion. So in the first scene that I shared from chapter 1, it was a joyful mood. And then you also have to consider the skill level of the student. So we're going to go through each one of these. Incidental pieces. An incidental piece is music that was originally written for the silent films. During this era, during the silent film era, there were silent films that were coming out, multiple films every week. And so instead of having the performers have to learn a whole brand new score for a specific film, what they've come up with were books that had incidental pieces, meaning there were books that had music that would be specific for a hero's theme, or a villainous scene, or a joyful scene, or a romantic scene, or something, so that they were able to take that music and apply it to many different films. It wasn't just specific for each film. When I went to the Library of Congress, I had the opportunity to look through these boxes full of pieces. This is one called the Slimy Viper. You'll see it's very yellow and faded, and this was actual music that was performed and played during the silent films. It came from a collection called Berg's Descriptive Series, and he had quite a few wonderful pieces that you could use. So this was like considered a villainous piece. As I looked over this music, I knew, one, this would be really challenging for students to read from. And it would also be really challenging for students that are less advanced to be able to perform something like this. So what I did is I took 20 of the very best pieces that I could find, and there were thousands of them. 20 of the very best pieces that I found, and put them in a collection called Silent Film Celebration Incidental Pieces for Piano. And this is my first volume. I took the music, broke it out into each of the different themes or moods. So there's the joyful dancing we were just talking about, and took them so that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 different moods or characters that could be played in any different film. So taking this slimy viper, I took this newly engraved, cleaned it up. This is the original score in a clean format. And you'll notice that this is a lot easier to read than the original. Now, this original music was fine for a late intermediate, early advanced student to perform, but I knew that it was not very conducive for an elementary or early intermediate student to perform. So I had it arranged, changed the key, kept the melody, made it a little bit more simple so that later elementary, early intermediate students would be able to would be able to play this music. Now, this music wasn't actually super easy for an elementary level student. So Joy Morin in Michigan, she ended up creating what's called incidental music for piano, where she performed it, or she wrote it specifically for an elementary level student. So if you're looking for music that is in the same style as the music that was originally performed in the 1900s, consider looking at Joy Morin's book. I included her QR code here too, so you're able to look at on her website and get more information on that. If you are wanting to look at even more music, there is music at the Library of Congress. They just digitized all of the music that I was describing. It is now available on the Library of Congress website. So I've included the QR code that brings you directly to this page. You can go through, and on the left-hand side where it says film scores, that's what you're going to click on, film scores, and you can research and find lots of music that is currently in the public domain. Now remember, the music that you're going to see is going to be highly faded. It's going to be more yellow because this is the original music that was used. Now, you're also welcome to use other music, copyrighted music, but if you do that, you need to make sure that you are getting a license. So there's in the ASCAP music licensing agreement, they have one with MTNA. So if you're doing this as a larger event, you might consider doing this with your local chapter. Go to the MTNA's website. They have more information on this licensing agreement. When I held our very first big event, we did not do it through MTNA. We ended up doing this on our own. And I can't even describe how challenging it was for me to get all of the licensing taken care of. I had to say what every single piece was, who was performing it, where it was being performed, even if it was just like a small portion of the film or a small portion of the piece, we still had to share it. It ended up costing over $500 to do this. So if you are considering doing a larger event and you want to use copyrighted music, you need to make sure that you are getting a license, whether it's on your own or through MTNA's licensing agreement, but that's what you will need. Okay, where are you going to hold your event? There are lots of different places where you can hold your silent film event. For us, right now, we hold this in a movie theater, but this is a big expense. There's a lot of work to do it here. It's something that you would need to have a big investment if you're going to do this. I think it costs us around a little over $5,000 to hold our event for 2 days. That's actually a really discounted price. Normally they would charge twice that amount, but because I've set up this event as a nonprofit, we're able to get it at a lower rate. But it doesn't have to be big like that. It could be in your own backyard. This is my backyard, and this is what I held one of our events. Now, I'm going to give you one word of advice. If you decide that you're going to hold a silent film event in your backyard, consider the time of day when you're going to hold this. When I held this event, I put down 7:30 on a Saturday afternoon in the summer, not realizing that at 7:30, this is 7:30, it's pretty bright. It feels very bright outside. And because of that, nobody was able to even see the film. So fortunately, I had very understanding parents, kids, and we ended up holding our event an hour later. It was still bright, but it wasn't, they were able to see it a little bit better at 8:30. So consider the time of day. I mean, it makes sense why drive-through films are shown at nighttime. So consider that. You could hold it in your home. You just need to make sure that you have a projector, a screen, which doesn't have to be an actual screen. It could be a wall. Have enough space for your students to sit at, as well as an audience. If you want it to be an audience, you could also hold it as like a group class. That might be pretty fun too. You could hold it in a creative recital space. We held ours in an art gallery. This is not something that would normally be held, would not normally hold something like this in an art gallery, but it worked really well for us while we were a little bit smaller. During COVID, uh, we couldn't meet in person. And so what I had my students do is I had them uh, record a piece. I didn't care what it was. They just needed to record something. And they actually sent me 2 different recordings, and I was able to choose out of the 2, which one did I want to include in the silent film party. We held an online silent film party where the students were able to watch themselves playing alongside a scene, which was pretty fun for them. In New Jersey, I work for the Francis Clark Center, and there is a school, a division of the Francis Clark Center called the New School for Music Study. They've been holding silent film celebrations. I think this is their 4th year doing, 3rd or 4th year this right now doing it. They hold it also in a movie theater, and they're using this as a fundraiser for the school. This is I love this picture. Paula Flynn is a wonderful friend and a colleague that lives in Wyoming, and they've been holding silent film celebration events for the past couple of years. They have this wonderful outdoor theater area where somehow they are able to still see the film on the screen because it works when it's also light outside. But you'll notice that the 2 ladies up in the top left-hand corner, they're sitting underneath an umbrella. And these pianos are getting doused in the rain right now. And I said, Paula, this is crazy. These pianos are getting destroyed. And she said, it's okay. These are old honky tonk pianos, so the rain is not going to hurt them at all. So again, if you're thinking about doing an outdoor event, consider not only the time of day, but also pay attention to what are your contingency plans if there's going to be rain. This is another place where you could hold it is at a retirement center. Joy Warren held this at a retirement center, which I thought was such a wonderful, wonderful idea. In fact, what I think I'm going to do with my students this next time is we're going to hold our rehearsals at a retirement center because it's going to benefit the residents as well as give the students an opportunity to play through it all before we do it in the movie theater. So this is a great idea too. And then there was another teacher who held an event where she had all of her students, Terry Hublick, she had all of her students send in she recorded them, she dubbed it all together, and they had a silent film watch party where they were able to watch it and hear themselves accompany the scenes, but there was no pressure. There was no anxiety in the recital because the students actually weren't playing in the recital. They were hearing music that was pre-recorded and put on uh, put on with this film, Buster Keaton film. So regardless of whatever you're going to do, you want to make sure that when you are having your students accompany the film in whatever event you're in, they need to be able to see the film. So here you can see these two girls are watching the scene from above. They're watching the screen from above so that they know when it is their time to perform. So being able to see it is really important. Okay, logistics. Let's talk about that. Lynette Zellis, this is a picture of her group this past year where they held a silent film event as a fundraiser. And instead of having it like on a normal screen, they have a big backdrop that was on a wall, which is a really great idea on how you could share the film. It doesn't have to be on an actual screen. It could be on a wall. It could be on a backdrop like this. If you are going to hold a larger event, I highly suggest not trying to do this all on your own, but recruit other teachers. This was my wonderful committee, Jennifer Jackson, who's holding the Silent Film Celebration placard. She and I were we have been the co-creators, co-producers of the Utah Silent Film Celebration for the past couple of years, and we have other committee members who helped with the tickets, with the sponsoring, with getting the students in and out, with the programs. There's a lot to do when you're holding an event, a larger event. You're also going to want to make sure that you have volunteers. These are two wonderful teachers who work at a school, and this is where they have their students participate in our event each year. So you can consider having independent music teachers participate. You can have students participate. There was an event that just was held in Kansas City where they had the university students play the pre-music before the films were shown. So you can collaborate with the universities. If you're going to do a bigger event, collaboration is really important, as well as getting sponsors. When we hold our bigger event, we're very fortunate in the fact that we have a lot of sponsors in our community who are willing to help support our event because they know how important music education is for our students and for our community. So all of our pianos we're able to have donated, brought into the theater. The movie theater has given us half price. We were able to get a grant from the Utah Division of Arts and Museums, and then other smaller businesses in the community have also been very generous in their donating. This is what our event looked like last year. You'll see here that I had a festival welcome and discussion, which was fun. It just gave a little bit of background information on silent films, basically what you're seeing today. This was a lot of what I shared with them in the film. We also talked about each of the films, giving them a little bit more information about each of the films that they were going to see as like a sneak peek on what is going to be shown throughout the festival. And then you see here on Saturday, September 16th, our first film began at 10:45 and the last film ended at 7 o'clock. In this event, we decided that we were also going to have some professional groups performing. So we included the Bountiful Philharmonia. I had a score that I ended up renting from a composer that wrote it specific for Sherlock Jr. He also wrote it for Liberty at the bottom on Saturday night. You'll see in the middle on Saturday at 1:30, we had a special performance by a gentleman named Blaine Gale, who has been accompanying silent films on a theater organ for decades. He's in his 90s, so it was such a treat to get to have the students hear him perform. Instead of this next year, what we're going to do, instead of having actual program books because no one is really paying attention, we are going to have everything on these music festival passes. So these passes we allow the students to go to any of the films, watch any of them, not just the ones that they are playing in. And this brings it's a good idea. So what's on the back of these festival passes is this schedule right here. That way they're able to see what's coming up, what else are they able to watch. You might want to get some things for a photo booth. So these are some of our props for the photo booth. And Joy's so great in letting me share this picture with her and her cute daughter. So here's a photo booth. You can have like a backdrop, a chair, photo props, but it doesn't have to be specifically these. You could have it be something else. You can also have refreshments like this, which is great too. Just making it more fun. So I have a timeline that I'm going to share with you. You'll get it in a PDF format, which basically shows a 3-month timeline of what you would need to do, what you will need to do 12 weeks in advance of the recital, and it goes through. The screen is too small to show it all, so you will get that as a PDF. The last thing we're going to talk about is the why. Why would you hold a silent film celebration? For me, my why was my students, specifically my student Matthew. That was the main reason why I started doing this, because I wanted him to find the joy in the journey of learning to play the piano and also sharing his musical abilities with others. That was my why. My why has expanded into also serving the community. While I was doing this specifically for my student, this has now become a project that I've been able to serve and support others as well. A couple of years ago, we purchased pianos from the proceeds from our event, and we ended up giving them to a couple of different places. The first place where we sent it was to this retirement center, and this sweet little lady, the one that's in the leopard print, who's barely taller than the piano. I heard her story about how she would always walk to the end of the hall with her packet of music and she would play. Her piano was not in good shape at all. It really wasn't very usable. So as I heard about her story, I knew that we needed to donate one of the pianos that we purchased to this center specifically for her. What's nice about this too is that teachers in the community are able to bring their students to this center and play for the residents. So it's a gift that keeps on giving. This was really important to me. We ended up giving a piano to a home for adults with disabilities. I had an aunt that had cerebral palsy, and she was affected to the point where she really couldn't speak. She was in a wheelchair, but the thing that brought her a lot of joy was music. So I wanted to give this piano to this center. So this was probably one of my most meaningful gifts. This past year, after I set up Silent Film Celebration as a nonprofit, we ended up using the proceeds to help support music education for a school in Honduras. So these students, while the pianos are not what you would typically want to teach a student on, it was the music that they were able, or that these pianos, they were able to purchase five of these keyboards and some other rhythm instruments and music and other things. It brought music to this school where they didn't have it before. So that was pretty meaningful too. But you don't have to have it be a grand thing. It could be whatever you want your why to be. Here's a parent testimonial. One parent said, "My daughter loves Silent Film Celebration. I noticed that the kids don't seem nervous like they do at a recital. They know people are focusing mostly on the film. It also turns something that can be solitary, playing the piano, into a fun group event." And this was definitely true. I saw that time and time again, starting with my first student, Matthew. And this is another picture of one of my cute students. She said, "I thought the film was funny and I liked playing jazz. It was nice to play for charity." As teachers, we are not just teaching them how to play the piano, but we're teaching them what it means to care about others. And I think this is teaching them that doing philanthropic work and helping others is something that was meaningful to me as a teacher. And hopefully I'm sending this to them, that they know that it should be meaningful to them as well. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to share testimonials from 3 of my students on why they like the event.
I feel like my favorite thing about silent films is just when it's over, I feel so proud and like that I was able to like help make the movie better.
It was so fun to like play with the group, and the piano was fun. After I played and sat back down, it was fun listening to like the other people play and how it linked with the movie.
So if you're looking for an event that is fun, it's engaging, this is something that you might enjoy doing with your own students. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. I also have the QR code right here if you'd like to learn more about the programs that I have put together. Feel free to reach out to me anytime. Thank you so much for coming, and have a good rest of the day.